الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا رسول الله. صلى الله عليك وعلى أهل بيتك المظلومين. صلى الله عليك ويا مولاي وابن مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة. غريب يا مظلوم كربلاء. ويا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي ونفزت فوزا عظيما. We wish we were there on the 10th of Muharram, so that we could have defended the women from the progeny of Rasulullah. قال الله في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. ثم قال الله في كتابه الكريم كل نفس ذائقة الموت. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Today I want to talk about two things which we think about a lot during the 10 days of Muharram. The first one being death. Because throughout the whole month of Muharram we say to Abu Abdullah that we were ready to die for you. And we have to think to ourselves, were we actually ready to die for our Imam? I also want to talk about our allegiance that we pay to the 12th Imam. So, when I recite the introduction for the Majlis, and we say in Ziyarat Ashura as well, we say, Ya laytana kunna ma'akum wa nafusta fawzan azima. If I was there with you on that day, we would have died a victorious death, or I would have died a victorious death. Firstly, in this world we look at death as something that's not a victory. Whereas Hur showed us on the day of Ashura, when Imam Hussein put his cheek on the cheek of Hur, and Hur says, who have I become that the son of Rasulullah's cheek is on my cheek? And so many people would look at the event of Karbala and say, how was it a victory when his family were killed? But look at today, millions, tens of millions of people around the world, during pandemics, during bombings, during missiles, whatever it is, we're remembering the family of Rasulullah, we remember what took place on the 10th of Muharram. For some people, death in itself is the end, completely finished. In Western school of thoughts, they say that the body is just part of the cycle of life. We come to life and we die, and that is the end of it. Whereas in Islam and many religions, we believe that death is part of life. In fact, there is a book by Shaykh Abbas al-Kummi where the name of the book is Manazil al-Akhir, the final journey. It is part of our living. And inshallah, our end goal is Jannah, inshallah, with the Ahlul Bayt. But death in itself is extremely painful, even for the believers. In fact, in the book that I just mentioned, it says that for some of the people, they will perform good deeds in this life, and when the time of death comes, they will wonder to themselves, why is death so painful when I have done good my whole life? For some people, this will be part of the tribulations where Allah is testing them. For some people, it may turn them away from the faith, to know how strong their yaqeen in Allah truly was. In the Holy Quran, it says in Surah Kaf, and the stopper of death will come in truth. That is what you were trying to escape. How much money do we spend? How much time do we spend trying to keep our health? And why? Firstly, we want to live a good life. But most of us here, we just want to live for longer. But this life, what is this world? Amir al-Mu'mineen says he is cursed the one who loves this world. So why do we want to live in it for so long? When we say to ourselves our end goal is Akhir, our end goal is Jannah. It's like me telling you that we're about to go to the sweet shop and you're saying, no, wait. What are you waiting for if your end goal is Jannah? At the moment of death, it is so difficult for the believer and the non-believer alike. In fact, it is said that at the moment of death, when the soul leaves our body, he is so confused, the dying person. On one side, he has Shaitan and his companions trying to deter him away from the faith. And on the other side, he has the angel of death approaching him. If just thinking about death is difficult in this world, and there are so many veils in front of our eyes, how difficult is that moment of death? Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam,
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Amir al-Mu'mineen was once sitting in his house and Rasulullah came to him. And it said that Amir al-Mu'mineen had an ailment of the eye, and he said to Rasulullah, it's causing me so much pain, I haven't felt a pain like it before. Then Rasulullah starts to tell him about death. He says that when the angel of death comes, he will come with a club of fire, and the fire of hell will be screaming at him. Upon hearing this, Amir al-Mu'mineen says that I can't even feel the pain in my eye anymore. He says to him, Amir al-Mu'mineen says to him, Ya Rasulullah, please explain to me this tradition further, for I do not feel the pain anymore. Will the spirit of anyone from among your ummah be removed in the same manner? The Holy Prophet replied, yes, there are 3 types of people. And I want you to think to yourself, if you fit in any of these categories. There are 3 types of people that will feel this pain. The first is the zalim, the oppressive ruler. The second is him who is unjust and usurps the right of the orphans. And the third of him is the one that bears false witness. Speaking about the first one, oppression, it doesn't just mean a tyrannical ruler like Yazid or Uthman, but any oppression that we give to people in our lives. Some of us are in positions where we can boss other people around, where we can mistreat people. That puts us in the same categories as the oppressors. Throughout the 10 days of Muharram, in fact, our whole lives, the moment we're born, we send our curses on the oppressors of the Ahlul Bayt. But on the Day of Judgment, when we're told that you were an oppressor as well, how much will that burn you? Do we want to fit in the same category as those people? The second of them, those who unjustly usurp the rights of the orphans. And I hope this doesn't go for any of you, but I just want to say, may Allah curse the ones on the 10th of Muharram. And the third of them, the bearer of false witness. And I think a lot of us may fall into this category, because it's so easy to exaggerate a story. It's so easy to push a story into your own agenda. Maybe add a few bits here, maybe add a few bits there to make myself sound like a hero, to make myself sound better. So when we're telling someone a story, in fact, one of the Imams says that the difference between truth and falsehood is 4 fingers, from what you hear and what you say. So make sure you're telling the truth, as simply as that. So that brings us on to the question that what can we do to ease death? What can we do to make the separation of the soul from the body easier? There is a story where Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, he enters upon the house of a boy who is about to pass away, and the child is laying there, and the mother says to him, Ya Rasulullah, please come and help my son, he is about to pass on to the next world. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam sits next to the body of the boy, and he says to him, recite the kalma. The boy is unable to move his tongue. He says to him, recite the kalma. The boy again is unable to move his tongue. Then Rasulullah turns to his mother and says to his mother, has he done anything in this world that which you have not forgiven him? She says, yes, but if you ask me to, Rasulullah, I will forgive him. Rasulullah tells her to forgive him, and he is able to recite La ilaha illallah. Think about, the boy was in the presence of Rasulullah, the greatest man to ever set foot on this earth. And he was requested by Rasulullah to recite the kalma. But the lack of forgiveness from his mother was enough to stop him from reciting the shahada. Another one of the acts that we can do is simply reading the Quran, but the greatest of acts is reciting salah on time. In fact, it is said that the angel of death will help the person who has recited salah on time. He will help them to recite the kalma, and he will deter the companions of shaitan and shaitan away from the person at the time of death. And we're told that at the time of death it is very, very easy for the faithful one to turn away. In fact, there is a tradition that states that there was a man who his whole life he spent in devotion to Allah, but the yaqeen wasn't there. And at the moment of death, when he saw the fire of hell and shaitan came, it quivered his faith and he turned towards the side of shaitan. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam says,
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
O the servants of Allah, the state in the grave of a person whose sins are not forgiven is more horrifying than death itself. Just now listening, in fact even talking about the separation of the soul from the body is extremely concerning. It's worrying. We go about our everyday lives as if we're never going to face death. We always say, remember death, imagine today was your last day, but we just go to sleep knowing you're going to wake up tomorrow morning, I'm going to drive to work, everything's going to be normal. But recent events have showed us that anything can happen. Some of the greatest businesses have crumbled, and some of the healthiest persons, my grandfather included, has passed away. Death is literally lurking around the corner for every single human being. Did you not read the Quran where it says every soul shall taste death? In fact, there is one certainty in life, and that is death. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, O the servants of Allah, the state in the grave of a person whose sins are not forgiven is more horrifying than death itself. Fear its narrowness, its squeezing, its imprisonment, and its loneliness. Verily the grave calls out daily, I am the house of loneliness, of terror and worms. The grave is like a garden of paradise for the good doer, while it is like a dungeon of hell for the evil doer. Allah tells His enemies that He will send 99 serpents in the grave who will tear their flesh and smash their bones. And this punishment will continue till the outbreak of Qiyamah. If one of these serpents was to exhale towards the earth, all plants and trees would be destroyed. If one of the 99 serpents was to do this. O servant of Allah, your souls are tender and your bodies are delicate. You cannot confront any ordinary serpent. Then how will you face him? Then how will you, of this world, how then will you face those 99 serpents? We are so confident when we walk around in this world. Even when we go to a funeral, we look at the person passing away, it's become a little bit normal. And we're told to remember these moments. But we need to learn more about what's happening at those moments. Where is the soul during the time of death? What happens in the grave? What questions will I be asked in the grave? And it's not something that you can just read and say, I'll memorize these words. Because it will be asking your soul, and your soul will quiver at that moment when Munkar and Nakir will ask you those questions. And there is one beautiful, beautiful hadith that I read in the same book, Manazil al-Akhir, where it says that those who are buried in Muhammad Salam, they will be exempted from the questioning of Munkar and Nakir. And according to some of the narrations, even if you're buried here in Rowan Road, that the soul of the believer will be taken over there. It will be as if he was buried in that graveyard. And there is a man who once asked Imam Hussein, will the people who are buried near your grave be questioned from Munkar and Nakir? And the Imam replies, I dare Munkar and Nakir to question those that are buried near my grave. But do not think that being buried near the grave of the Imam is enough to exempt you from the difficulties of the grave. Because surely those that are buried there that were oppressors and disbelievers, it will be as if they were buried in the, I forgot the name of it, but the Wadi of the evildoers. And that brings me on to the second part of the lecture, where I want to ask ourselves, are we prepared for the Imam of our time? Like I said, we constantly say, Ya laytana kunna ma'akum, if we were there with you on that day. How many companions were there on that day, and how many people claimed they would have been there for Imam Hussein? When Muslim ibn Aqil went to Kufa, he started with so many followers, and that became so little in the space of just a few days. Or in fact, one day, if I'm not wrong, that Muslim ibn Aqil wanted to tell the Imam, don't come to Kufa because these people will not follow you. Amir al-Mu'mineen, after the death of Rasulullah, he was told all you need is 40 believers before you can claim. And he couldn't even get 40. In fact, some traditions say there were just 5. But we're so confident. How many Muslims has there been since the time of Imam Hassan al-Askari until the, in fact, since the time of Rasulullah until the time of now, how many Shia Muslims has there been? How many lovers of the Ahlul Bayt has there been? And according to the traditions, there will only be 313 leaders, and the Imam is waiting for 313. You're telling me from, if I was to guess the numbers, 10 million, maybe more, 30, 40, 50 million people, you can't even find 313. So have we really paid our allegiance to our Imam? Are we like the munafiq that when they recite the Quran, they're just saying the words of God, but it doesn't go past their throat? That when we say, Ya laytana kunna ma'akum, we're just saying it. We're just trying to create contentment for our heart, saying that, yeah, if we were there on that day, we would have sacrificed ourselves. We have difficulties in this world. For example, going for Arba'in, which I think many of us have done. You have to leave your work behind, you have to leave this behind, the stress, sorting out the visas, sorting out the flights, everything is difficult. But that for us is a practice that when the Imam comes, we realize that when you're there on Arba'in, your phone's ringing for work, it doesn't matter because this is more important. When someone calls you, it doesn't matter because this is more important. When you're getting 100 notifications on Instagram, Snapchat, whatever it is, it doesn't matter because when you are there in Karbala, you realize that your Imam is the most important thing for you in this world. And when it comes to the majalis of Imam al-Hussein, if the majlis was not to happen, God forbid the day ever comes, why would we feel so empty? If I was to ask any of you lot, remember one of the times where you were mourning a near family relative member, would you want to go through that period again? Of course not. It's a painful time for a loved one. But why when it comes to the majlis of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, 10 days we've spent in mourning, and another 40 days we will spend in mourning. And when that 40 days finishes, we look at the calendar, when will Muharram start again? Why? Because we were born for one reason, and one reason only, and that is to mourn Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. Ya Allah, if you take the love of Imam al-Hussein from my heart, take my soul with it, because there is no point living on this world if I cannot mourn Aba Abdullah al-Hussein.
Nara Hadari.
And we also say that we wish to live our lives like the Imams, like the Ahlul Bayt, and die the death of the Ahlul Bayt, inshallah. So are we ready for the Imam of our time? What do we do in our day-to-day lives that we claim that we would have been there on the 10th of Muharram? Because surely it hurts our heart when we hear that the Imam had to plead for help, he had to call for help. But there were people on that day that were Muslims, some of them in the enemy's ranks, some of them that were just narrators, but they weren't there to help the Imam. Some of them from Kufa, some of them from Makkah and Medina, who didn't come with the Imam to help him. And surely they would have said to themselves that we would have been there for the Imam, but when the time came, they were scared. If I was to ask you today, are you ready for death? And I've already spoken about the difficulties of the separation of the soul and the fear of the unknown. You know, sometimes when you go for an interview, you get anxious. When you go to somewhere that you don't know, if for example, the first time I traveled for Arba'in, it was going to a new world. We're used to the comforts of the Western civilization, of the Western world. And when you go to Iraq, it's scary. You don't know what you're going to face. You hear about bombs, you hear about this, you hear about that. And obviously you're sitting in the plane, you're like, the moment this plane lands, I'm in Iraq. I'm in a war-torn country. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what to expect. And it's fear of the unknown. And that's the unknown of this world. I can go on Google Street and see what Iraq looks like. I can see pictures of Ziyara, and I know that I'm going to my Imam, so there's a comfort for me. But death is so scary because it's the unknown. Now if I was to ask you, are you ready to visit the unknown today? I think most of us would say no, right? So then what makes us so confident that on the 10th of Muharram, when the Imam asked, when the Imam told his companions, you will die tomorrow, that they were ready for him? And if we were amongst those companions, that we would have been ready to die. And we come to the majalis of Imam Hussein every year, 10 days, spend in mourning, and after the 10 days finishes, what do we take with us? That if the Imam was to give his call this second, we would find our fastest way to him, and we'd be ready to give our lives for him. And inshallah, I've seen the love amongst the people in this room, and there is very little doubt in my mind that you would be scared to visit the Imam in his time of need, inshallah. But what else can we do to create a nearness to the 12th Imam, that when he calls us, we'll drop everything, our Lamborghinis, our cars, our houses, our work, our phones, whatever it is, our designer clothes, they mean nothing in this world. Because like I said before, we were born for one reason, and that is mourning of Abdullah. And when the 12th Imam comes, we'll be ready to go to him. We say in Dua Ahad, Allahumma in hala bayni wa baynahu al-mawt alladhi ja'altahu ala ibadika hatman maqdiya فأخرجني من كبري مؤتضرا كفني شاهرا سيفي مجردا كناتي. Oh Allah, raise me from my grave, wearing my shroud with my sword unsheathed. Are we really ready for the Imam of our time? Even if he doesn't come in our life, inshallah he does. Will we be raised from the grave? How many times do we read Dua Ahad? The Dua of Allegiance. Every single morning. If you can do it after Fajr, you should recite Dua Ahad. And I speak to myself first when I say this. And it's literally 5-6 minutes of Dua. Very easy to recite. We should all know it by head. And even then, how long is most of our commutes to work? Probably within a half an hour to an hour region. So what's 5-6 minutes of that? Every single morning we should recite Dua Ahad and understand the meaning of what we're saying. That we want to be wearing our shroud. What does that mean? We're preparing ourselves to go to the grave with our swords unsheathed. We should also recite every Friday Dua Nutbah, in which it speaks about the greatness of Amir al-Mu'mineen, but afterwards it goes on to say, أين تالب بدم المكتوب بكربلاء? Where is the one that will avenge what happened in Karbala? Where is the truth upon truth? Where are the sons of Hussein? And every single morning, another thing we should do is to remind ourselves that the Imam is there. We should send our salams to him. Every single morning when we wake up, not just to remind ourselves, but telling our Imam that, Imam, I have woken up this morning and I remember you. And constant throughout our day, we should think about, in fact, if I'm not wrong, there's a narration that says that every time a believer does something bad, it creates a tear in the eye of the Imam. Do you want to be a reason that your Imam cries? When you sever your kins away from you, when you refuse to help the orphans, when you do evil deeds, when you lie, the Imam knows about all of this. He is told about all of this. Surely he will weep and say, these are meant to be my believers. Because this breaks his heart. It's like a mother looking at her son commit a bad deed. Look like a father seeing his son do something wrong. It breaks their heart. They spend their whole life nurturing this child to do good. But for the Imam, he sees us. And I'm sure he worries, because he says these people keep saying that they are there for me. They keep giving their allegiance to me. But still, they look at this world over the Akhirah. So in our day-to-day lives, instead of being the reason for the tears for the Imam, let's do good. Like this 10 days of Majalis, I'm sure that, I hope anyways, that we have put a smile on the face of the Imam. That he says even during difficult times, they have gone beyond the expectations and held Majalis for Imam al-Hussein and for everyone here, and for anyone that came and visited. They were a part of that blessing of the Majlis. For everyone's du'as, that on the 1st of Muharram and before that, they said, oh Allah, this year, how am I going to do the Majlis from Imam Hussein on Zoom? How am I going to do it on Skype, Facebook, watching live streams? Surely that's not enough to quench the burning flame in our hearts. Their du'as are the reasons that we were able to hold this Majlis. And inshallah we will go away from the majlis remembering about Abdullah al-Hussein and his family. And we will remember the fear of death. We will be prepared for death. And we will hopefully give our allegiance to the Imam of our time. Every single morning we will give our allegiance to the Imam. And we say that we were ready to die for the Imam of our time. But Ya Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, I truly say, Ya laytana kunna ma'akum wa nafuzna fawdan azima. When the family of Rasulullah returned back to Medina, they were on the outskirts of Medina. Imam al-Sajjad, he sees a man by the name of Bishr. He says to him, "Oh Bishr, do you recite poetry like your father used to?" Bishr says, "Yes, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, I can recite poetry." He says, "Then go to Medina and tell them what took place in Karbala." Bishr says, "I ran to Medina reciting, Ya Ahla Yathrib la mukabalakum biha. O people of Yathrib, get out of your homes and leave the city." He says that all the people of Medina left their homes and gathered by the grave of Rasulullah. When I got there, they said to me, "Oh Bishr, why have you gathered us? What is the news?" I said to them, "Ya Ahla Yathrib la mukabalakum biha. قتل الحسين فاذبئين من نار الجسم من كربلاء." Oh people of Yathrib, get out of your homes and leave the city. For Abu Abdullah Hussein was killed in Karbala. His body lays on the sands by the river of Furat, and his head is on the spear of Banu Umayyah. His body was trampled by the horses. Bishr says that there was not a single dry eye in Medina when I said this. The people were weeping. And then from a corner of my eye, I saw a woman approaching me. I said to the people, "Who is this woman?" They said, "Oh Bishr, be gentle with your words, for this is al-Banin. Ya al-Banin." She comes to Bishr, she says, "Oh Bishr, I hear that you have news from Karbala." Bishr says, "Ya al-Banin, I send my condolences on the death of your son Uthman." She says, "Tell me about Abu Abdullah." He says, "Ya al-Banin, I send my condolences on the death of your son Abdullah." She says, "Tell me about Abu Abdullah." He says to her, "Ya al-Banin, I send my condolences on the death of your son Ja'far." She says, "But tell me about Abu Abdullah." He says, "Ya al-Banin, I send my condolences to you on the death of your son Abul Fadl Abbas." She says, "Oh Bishr, you have torn my heart by saying this." Then he says to her, "Ya al-Banin, I send my condolences to you on the death of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein." al-Banin drops the child that she was holding. She falls to the ground crying, "I want to die, oh Hussein." Then in Medina, When the family of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein arrive at their houses, Zainab says to the housemaid, she says, do not let anyone enter the house, for we are in mourning right now. A few moments later, a lady comes to the door. The servant says, Ya Zainab, Ummul Baneen is at the door, do I let her in? Zainab says, of course, she is mourning with us. Ummul Baneen enters the house and for the first time sees Zainab al-Kubra. But in what state does she see her? She has aged so much because of the griefs of Karbala and Sham. She looks at her, she says, hey, Walada, Husayna. Then Zainab al-Kubra, she looks at Ummul Baneen. She says, إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Ya Allah, we pray that we are raised from our graves, dressed in our shrouds, with our swords done sheathed, ready to fight for Imam Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman. Ya Sahib al-Asr, I send my condolences to you on the death of your grandfather, Abi Abdullah al-Hussein.